Be quiet. Stop making so much noise. Your voice is too loud. Stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. If you heard these words as a child, over and over, something happened inside you. Something you might not even realize is still happening now. You learn to be small, to be silent, to make yourself disappear. Welcome to the psychology of kids who were taught to be quiet. The ones who learned that their voice didn't matter, that their feelings were inconvenient, that taking up space was wrong. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when children are silenced. Not just told to lower their volume, but taught that who they are is too much. And if you recognize yourself in this, if you still struggle to speak up decades later, you're going to finally understand why. Because this wasn't about you being too loud. This was about you being taught that you were. Let's start with something important. There's a difference between teaching children when quiet is appropriate and teaching them to be silent. All kids need to learn that libraries require whispers, that people are sleeping and we should be considerate, that sometimes we use our inside voice instead of our outside voice. That's normal. That's teaching social awareness. That's healthy. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about something different, something that goes deeper, something that doesn't just teach when to be quiet, but teaches you that you are the problem. You're too loud. Not, let's use a quieter voice right now, but you are too loud. As if loudness is your fundamental flaw. Stop being so dramatic. Not, I see you're upset, let's talk about it. But your feelings are excessive and wrong. Why do you always have to make everything about you? Not, I hear you, but right now we need to focus on something else. But your needs are selfish and inappropriate. This is emotional invalidation. And when it happens repeatedly throughout childhood, it teaches a dangerous lesson. Your voice doesn't matter. Your feelings are wrong. You are too much. Research shows that when children's emotions are consistently dismissed or labeled as weak, they learn to suppress their feelings instead of expressing them. They internalize the message that expressing emotions means exposing vulnerability, which feels dangerous. So they choose silence, not because they don't have things to say, but because they've learned saying them isn't safe. Let me tell you what this looks like in real life. You're 7 years old. You come home excited about something that happened at school. You burst through the door ready to share your story. But your parent is tired, stressed, overwhelmed. Not now. I have a headache. Can you just be quiet for once? You wanted to share something joyful, but your joy was treated as noise, as an inconvenience, as too much. So you learn. Next time, you don't share. You keep your excitement inside. You make yourself small. Or maybe you're upset about something. A friend was mean. You felt left out. Your feelings are hurt. You cry, because that's what kids do when they're hurt. But instead of comfort, you get, stop crying. You're being ridiculous. It's not that big of a deal. Your pain was dismissed. Your tears were treated as manipulation or weakness. Your hurt was minimized. So you learn, crying isn't safe. Showing pain gets you criticized, not comforted. Better to hold it in. Or maybe you have a need. You're hungry, or scared, or need help with something. You ask, because that's what kids are supposed to do when they need something. But you're told, why are you so needy? Can't you do anything by yourself? Stop bothering me. Your need was treated as a burden. Your request for help was seen as weakness. So you learn, having needs is shameful. Asking for help is annoying. Better to struggle alone. These moments might seem small. Just a parent having a bad day. Just normal life stress. But when they happen again and again, when they become the pattern, they create a core belief system. I am too much. My feelings are wrong. My voice is a problem. I should disappear. Here's what researchers have found. Children whose emotional needs are consistently ignored or dismissed develop what's called childhood emotional neglect. This isn't about physical neglect. You might have been fed, clothed, housed. You might have had everything you needed materially, but emotionally, you were taught that your feelings don't deserve attention, that your inner world doesn't matter, and that creates wounds that last into adulthood. Studies show that emotional invalidation teaches children they cannot trust themselves. When the adults around you respond to your emotions by dismissing them or labeling them as weak, you internalize this behavior. You learn to put on a brave face, hold back your tears, and suppress your feelings. This becomes an ingrained habit that you carry into adulthood. Let's talk about the different ways children are taught to be quiet. Sometimes it's direct. Be quiet. Stop talking. I don't want to hear it. Clear commands that your voice should stop, that what you're saying doesn't deserve to be heard. Sometimes it's more subtle. Eye rolls when you speak. Interruptions. Changing the subject. Looking at their phone while you're talking. Nonverbal messages that say, what you're saying isn't worth my attention. Sometimes it's through comparison. Why can't you be more like your sister? She's so well behaved. So quiet. The message, the quiet child is the good child. Your natural expressiveness is a flaw to fix. Sometimes it's through punishment. Sent to your room for expressing anger. Isolated for being too much. Given the silent treatment when you try to communicate. Schools can reinforce this too through what researchers call the silence curriculum, an institutional failure to acknowledge or address students' emotional lives. When children are discouraged from expressing emotion, distress is internalized as depression or expressed as aggression. The message, expressing feelings gets you punished. Better to hold everything inside. Sometimes it's through shame. You're being a baby. Stop being so sensitive. What's wrong with you? The message, your emotions are embarrassing. Having feelings means there's something wrong with you. And sometimes it comes from good intentions. Parents who are overwhelmed, stressed, dealing with their own trauma. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just surviving. But intention doesn't erase impact. Either way, the result is the same. You learn to be quiet, to suppress, to disappear. Here's what happens to kids who are taught to be quiet. First, they lose touch with their own emotions. When you're constantly told your feelings are wrong, you stop trusting them. Someone hurts you, but you think maybe you're being too sensitive. Someone crosses a boundary, but you think maybe you're overreacting. Your internal compass gets so confused that you can't tell what's real anymore. Research shows that children taught to suppress emotions often struggle as adults to identify how they're feeling. They might know they feel bad, but can't pinpoint if it's sad, angry, anxious, or hurt. Their emotional vocabulary never developed because they weren't allowed to practice it. Second, they develop what researchers call self-invalidating patterns. Even when adults around them acknowledge their feelings are valid, they've internalized the opposite message. They question the validity of their feelings and choose to stay silent when upset because they fear their feelings might be dismissed again. I shouldn't feel this way. I'm being dramatic. Other people have it worse. You become your own worst critic, doing to yourself what was done to you. Third, they struggle with relationships. Because here's the thing about learning to be quiet. You don't unlearn it just because you become an adult. You enter relationships not knowing how to express needs, how to communicate hurt, how to ask for what you want. So you stay silent. You hope people will just know. You expect them to read your mind. And when they don't, when they can't, you feel more alone than ever. Fourth, they develop anxiety and depression. Because suppressing emotions doesn't make them go away. It just makes them leak out in other ways. Panic attacks, insomnia, physical pain, overwhelming sadness you can't explain. Studies show significant numbers of children whose emotions were invalidated suffer for many years from psychological and social difficulties. Your body keeps the score even when your mouth stays quiet. Fifth, they become people pleasers. Desperate to not be too much, they make themselves small in every area of life. They say yes when they mean no. They laugh at jokes that aren't funny. They don't complain even when something is wrong. Because the child in them still believes, my needs are burdens. My voice is annoying. Better to just go along. Let me tell you about what happens in adult relationships when you were taught to be quiet as a child. You choose silence over confrontation. Even when something is really bothering you, even when you're deeply hurt, you don't speak up. Because in your childhood home, speaking up led to dismissal, criticism, or punishment. So silence became your safest option. Studies show this pattern. People who go silent when upset often learned in childhood that expressing feelings meant exposing vulnerability, which felt dangerous. You also struggle to articulate your emotions. Someone asks, "What's wrong?" and you genuinely don't know how to answer. If you grow up in an environment where emotions aren't openly discussed or expressed, you might not learn how to express your own feelings in a healthy way. You struggle to put feelings into words, so you choose silence instead of expression. You might also fear being a burden. When you do have needs, you hesitate to share them. It's not that big of a deal. I don't want to bother them. I can handle it myself. That voice that told you as a child that you were too needy? It's still playing in your adult head. Research shows this too. People raised with invalidation learn to see their feelings as selfish or inappropriate. They prioritize everyone else's needs over their own. They become the ones always giving, never asking. You also might fear rejection intensely, because expressing yourself as a child led to emotional abandonment or the silent treatment. Being given the silent treatment evokes fear of abandonment in children. As adults, they engage in people-pleasing behaviors to avoid perceived rejection. So you perform. You become who others want you to be, because being yourself feels too risky. And perhaps most painfully, you don't even realize you're doing all of this. It just feels normal. This is how you've always been. Quiet, agreeable, low maintenance, easy. But it's not who you are. It's who you were taught to be. Here's what silencing children does to their sense of self. Every time a child's feelings are dismissed, they receive a message: you are not important. Your inner world doesn't matter. Who you are is wrong. Over time, this erodes their sense of self-worth. They start to believe they're less valid than other people. Research on childhood emotional neglect shows this clearly. When your natural needs to be seen, heard, and validated go unmet, you learn you're not worth being seen or heard. This affects everything: your confidence, your ability to advocate for yourself, your belief that you deserve good things. You develop what psychologists call a negative self-bias. Everyone else's feelings are valid and important, just not yours. There's also shame. Deep, suffocating shame about who you are. When being given the silent treatment or told to be quiet, children's behavior affects emotional processing, creating chaos and low self-esteem. You feel ashamed of having emotions, ashamed of having needs, ashamed of taking up space, and that shame follows you everywhere. Into your career, where you don't speak up in meetings, into your relationships, where you don't express your needs, into your life, where you make yourself smaller and smaller. Let's talk about the messages that teach children to be quiet. Stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. This teaches your pain doesn't matter, and expressing it will lead to more pain. You're too sensitive. This teaches your emotional responses are flawed. Something is wrong with you for feeling what you feel. Why do you always have to cause drama? This teaches expressing feelings equals creating problems. Better to suppress than to share. Be seen and not heard. This teaches your presence is acceptable only when you're silent. Your voice has no value. I don't have time for this right now. When said repeatedly, this teaches your feelings are inconvenient. Your emotional needs are burdens. Big boys/girls don't cry. This teaches showing vulnerable emotions is weakness. You must always appear strong. You're making a big deal out of nothing. This teaches your assessment of situations is wrong. You can't trust your own judgment. Each of these messages, repeated over time, builds a belief system, a set of rules about who you're allowed to be. And those rules, they're still running your life, even now. Here's something people don't realize. Silencing children isn't always about noise level. Sometimes the quietest children are the most silenced. Because being silenced isn't always about being told to lower your volume. It's about being told your thoughts, feelings, and experiences don't deserve expression. You might have been a naturally quiet child who learned that even your quiet attempts at expression were too much. Who raised your hand in class but was constantly overlooked. who tried to share something important but was interrupted and never asked to finish, who learned that even gentle, quiet self-expression was unwelcome. The message is the same: you don't matter. Your voice doesn't count. Better to stay silent. So how do you heal from being taught to be quiet? First, you acknowledge what happened. You name it. I was silenced as a child. My feelings were invalidated. My voice was treated as a problem. Saying it out loud, to yourself, to a therapist, to someone safe, makes it real. And real things can be healed. Second, you practice recognizing your feelings. Because if you were taught to suppress them, you probably lost touch with them. Start small. Several times a day, stop and ask, how do I feel right now? Happy, sad, angry, frustrated, anxious, calm. You don't have to do anything about it. Just practice noticing, rebuilding that connection to your inner world. Third, you challenge the voice that says you're too much. When that old tape plays, I'm being dramatic, I'm overreacting, I should just get over it. You question it. Is that true? Or is that what I was taught to believe? Your feelings are valid. Always. Even when they're uncomfortable. Even when they're inconvenient. Fourth, you practice using your voice. Start small. Start safe. Tell a trusted friend how you're really doing instead of saying, I'm fine. Express a preference instead of saying, I don't care, whatever you want. Say no to something you don't want to do instead of forcing yourself to please others. Each small act of using your voice rewires your brain, shows you it's safe, that expressing yourself doesn't lead to abandonment or criticism. Fifth, you work with a therapist who understands childhood emotional neglect, someone who can help you process the pain of being silenced, who can teach you it's not just okay, but necessary to have a voice, who won't minimize your experience or tell you it's not that big of a deal. And finally, you give yourself permission. Permission to speak, to feel, to take up space, to exist fully. Permission to be loud sometimes, to be messy, to have needs, to express opinions. Permission to be the opposite of everything you were taught to be. Here's what I want you to understand if you were taught to be quiet. Your voice matters. It always did, even when you were told it didn't. The adults who silenced you were wrong. Maybe they were overwhelmed. Maybe they didn't know better. Maybe they were dealing with their own pain. But they were wrong about you. You were never too much. You were never too loud. You were never too sensitive. You were a child who had feelings, who had needs, who had things to say, and all of that was normal, natural, exactly as it should be. What wasn't normal was the silencing, the invalidation, the message that you should disappear. That was never about you. That was about their inability to handle your humanness. And you deserve better. You deserve to be heard, to be seen, to be validated. So if you're still carrying the weight of being told to be quiet, I want you to know it's time to speak. Not because you owe anyone your voice, but because you deserve to use it. You deserve to express your feelings, to state your needs, to take up the space you were always meant to occupy. You don't have to be quiet anymore. You don't have to make yourself small. You don't have to apologize for existing. Your voice is not too loud. Your feelings are not too much. Your needs are not burdens. You are not the problem. You never were. So start today. Say one thing you've been holding back. Express one feeling you've been suppressing. Ask for one thing you need. Just one. That's enough to begin. Because the child you were deserved to be heard. And the adult you are deserves that too. Use your voice. The world needs it. And more importantly, you need it. You've been quiet long enough.